I am looking for a place to measure my wood stove where it would represent best temperature for that stove. I had been measuring the top plate on one side because it's easy to clamp a thermocouple to, and I've been doing that on 2 stoves for a few years now, and it did give me a representative temperature of the stove. However, I'm exploring other methods, and one is a non-contact sensor that I just look at the stove, and so I have to reposition how I mount the sensor and look at the stove. So we're going to go over temperature measurement of wood stoves. Some places are better than other. You can work with any location. However, you need different algorithms for different locations. I have found that if I take my controller, which has a eye on the top and it's angled slightly upward, but if I put it on a ring stand and really point it at the area above the brick on the side of the stove, I'm getting the highest readings that I can find on the stove. And there's a good reason for that. At that point, the surface is only 6 millimeters or a quarter inch or less away from the fire. Or if you measure it under the brick or behind the brick, it's going to be a lower temperature, but right above the brick, that's going to be your hottest surface temperature. And sometimes I blow a fan at that location because it felt the hottest. I want to go over the temperature measurement locations typical on any wood stove. Some wood stoves come with an integrated temperature sensor if they have a catalyst bed. But for just about any stove whatsoever, you can measure the stovepipe. That's a good location because you get rapid response on a very thin surface. The stovepipe is the thinnest material, or the thinnest steel. It does get coated in stuff, so it does have a lower response once it gets dirty, but the steel thickness is the thinnest and it will heat up and cool down the quickest. The next location is the top plate. Now, I have run hundreds and hundreds of stove tests with a top plate mounted Type K thermocouple clamped to the top plate. If you got the temperature of that top plate, I know what's going on in that wood stove. Now, I'm finding that the sidewall above the bricks appears to be better for a non-contact sensor. So while I'm reading 500 degrees on the side of the stove, and I got that backed up with a Therm Pro contact measure where I have good confidence in, the temperature readings are about 100 degrees higher than I see on the surface of the stove at anywhere other location. Now, the front door is a different scenario, but sometimes there's not a lot of room on the front door, and so the front door definitely gets hot. It's one of the hottest locations. However, it's complicated because it moves. So if you don't have room on the front door, the side, that corner right next to it on the left, or the corner on the right, up high on the stove, under the top plate, is the best location for a non-contact type sensor. And I'll go over the sensor. First, I want to go over the locations. Here I have 2 thermocouples bonded with a spring clamp to the top plate. Here I have the bead. I have a thermocouple bead inserted in a small hole in my chimney so I can get the gas temperature as it leaves the stove. Now, I don't recommend a homeowner put a hole in the chimney. However, for testing purposes, I insert my chimney sensor right in there. The question becomes, which locations are best to measure? It really doesn't matter as long as you measure the same location and compare. So if you've got a magnetic temperature sensor on the chimney, as long as you use that, that's fine. And if you have a bonded thermocouple to the plate and you're using that, that's fine as well. Just be advised that if you measure the side of the stove, you're going to get a hotter temperature than the top, or maybe even the chimney. For a control system, we want to measure the same location each time, and it makes sense to find the hottest location on the stove. If you want to measure the hottest location on the stove, the upper side, the front above the door, or the other side are the 3 locations that you can measure with like a magnetic temperature sensor or a non-contact type sensor to get the right temperatures or get the most extensive temperatures on the stove. This is a thermocouple reader. They're commonly available on eBay and Amazon. The bead is just to the left, and it is very small. You can put it in very small holes, small areas. It's critical to get the polarity right on the male jack on the top, but from there you can read your temperature. I have here an image of a very common magnetic temperature sensor, and you put these on your stove and a little red needle goes up and down, and you try to keep it in the best operating range. These are good for kids. My kids would say, hey, it's in the burn zone. I don't have to do anything. And if you don't have a temperature sensor, these are just fine. They're not going to be used as a control system other than training the humans how to put wood on the stove when it reaches a certain temperature or shut down the airflow. But they're good enough. It's better than nothing.